Welcome to another edition of Tampa Bay Insiders, where you get to meet some of the movers and shakers in our town. With me today is Mr. Terrell Sessums, who was a former Speaker of the House and a legislator for 10, 11 years, 12 years, and did many, many, many things in this town and still keeps an eye on what we're doing, and we're going to talk to him today. Welcome. I'm so glad you could be here with us.
Thank you.
Terrell, tell me about, were you born here, or you're a cracker, or you're a Florida cracker, though, right?
I was born in Florida. I was born in Daytona Beach.
Okay.
I lived there the first 8 years of my life. Then my family moved to Jacksonville. And I graduated from high school there and then went to the University of Florida. In my freshman year at the University of Florida, my dad's company transferred him to their Tampa district office. So I then started spending holidays in Tampa.
You've been here a good long time.
And years later, when I finished law school, the law firm in Tampa was kind enough to offer me a job. So I came here in 1958 and have been here ever since.
I was reading an article about you in which I guess it was your brother who was quoted saying you intended to be an architect.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, in high school, I'd taken architectural drafting and had done some work with a Jacksonville architect and with a grandfather who was a builder. And I liked the design aspects of it, mostly small residential units. But when I got to the University of Florida, I discovered it was a 5-year course. With
1 year too long.
With a lot more math than I was interested in. And I had a great political science professor. So I sort of followed the course of least resistance in the area that I resonated with more.
Interesting how you happened upon then switching over into from political science. You got an undergraduate degree?
Yes.
Okay, and then switched right into politics?
Well,
into law.
Correct, but I had an interlude in the Air Force in between. When I graduated from college, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. The Korean armistice was signed, so I was about a year late being called to active duty, but I served several years in the Air Force. It gave me a great opportunity to see other parts of the country and most of Western Europe and parts of North Africa. So
you got well-traveled before you knew it.
Well-traveled. Got the GI Bill, so I then opted to come back to the University of Florida and go to law school. I didn't think there were many great opportunities for political scientists.
What made you think about law? Now, you didn't come from a lawyer family, right?
I think my dad at one point growing up may have been interested in the practice of law. I felt, well, it's an independent profession. I'd taken a course in constitutional law as an undergraduate. Thought it was interesting and would give me an honorable way of making a living and an opportunity to be involved in public service.
Okay, so you went back to school, went back to UF.
Yes.
And studied law.
USF wasn't here then.
See, USF
when
was what, 30? It's
came,
in the 30s, isn't it?
It was
40?
authorized in '56.
Okay.
Took their first class in 1960.
Okay.
I remember my wife, who was an undergraduate in the College of Education, said she could get a job teaching school here. So we were married in August after I came here in February after I graduated from law school. And we took a Sunday afternoon drive out to see where they were building this new university. We both knew Dr. John Allen and Mrs. Allen. I'd been a student body president at Florida and had been on several faculty committees and had had an opportunity to meet and lay us on some with Dr. Allen. And my wife worked as a student assistant for one of the vice presidents in the administration building and knew them then. We thought highly of them and came out and saw where they were building the first 3 buildings.
So you were there long before what we see now, like 1 million dorms and all kinds of traffic and still not enough parking and all of that. And you have to walk miles to get to the building and all of that. But
somebody joked that the architects made a mistake. The proper scale was an eighth of an inch, and they accidentally used a quarter of an
Oh,
inch.
my God, they think
Spread
that's what
everything
happened. So there you, so you go back to law school, so
Mm-hmm.
you go to law school, and you come out, and you get a job offer here in Tampa
Yes.
for a big firm.
Well, the firm was Hardy and Ott, C.J. Hardy Jr. and T. Truett Ott. C.J.'s father was the county solicitor. We call him the state attorney now. And his uncle had been a governor of Florida, and C.J. had been very active in Democratic politics and was active at the university. And Truett Ott was a little different animal. Truett was a litigator and had been working with Governor Carleton at the Carleton firm, left to form the partnership with C.J. Truett later became a state senator.
What kind of law did you practice at your first firm?
Well, I didn't know very much about the practice of law, and I became what was euphemistically referred to as a crap lawyer in the firm.
The crap lawyer?
Yeah, the youngest, newest associate, got everything nobody else wanted to do.
So you got a little bit of everything nobody liked.
Yeah, I drew out Minnie's will and with Uncle Joe, who got charged with DWI, and started representing a lot of injured workmen in workers' compensation cases. I learned that C.J. had represented the AFL CIO Central Trades and did a certain amount of labor work, and that brought a lot of workers' compensation work. So I did that, had to take a crash course in anatomy and figure out how to deal with the medical aspects of the cases, which were a good part of them.
Yeah. And you went to other law firms after that one?
Yes, I practiced there till I guess January of '61. And C.J., in the latter part of the time, he was just an outstanding lawyer and a good guy, but he developed some serious personal problems that I felt really cast a real cloud on the future of that firm and on my practice, because I was being increasingly required to run what I thought were almost kamikaze missions, and I decided I really needed to do something else. So the junior partner in that law firm, Dallas Albritton, and I decided to form our own partnership. And I have a younger brother who was only a year behind me in law school. He had no military service and had been a precocious student, entered the law review, and had stayed on the faculty for a year, and had gone with a blue chip firm on the East Coast, wanted to come back to Tampa. So the three of us launched a firm in January of '61. We had no clients. Our trump card is our wives were all employed. And,
Lucky break
so
there.
we were too nervous to lease any office space, so we rented a couple of office rooms in the old First National Bank building, paid by the month. We took anything that lawyers referral or other lawyers would refer to us, but it took hold and things went very well for us.
And your specialty then?
Well, is primarily workers' compensation law. A lot of my former clients referred people to me. A lot of other lawyers didn't want to be bothered with it. So I had quite a large group of workers' comp clients.
So there you were busy with all of this, your own firm and so forth, and then you end up not so long after that running for the legislature.
Yeah, I think it was about 5 years later.
How'd that happen?
Well, in a way, accidentally, I'm not sure, but Sam Gibbons had been a member of the Florida House and decided to run for the state Senate. And I thought Sam was a very impressive candidate. I didn't know him personally, but I knew one of the associates with the firm, and I volunteered to help some. So I made a $25 campaign contribution.
Big money.
Went to a luncheon meeting
What?
in 1958 or 59, yeah.
My goodness.
And did a little time passing out cards and putting on some bumper stickers, and Sam got elected. Well, later...
He got elected and elected and elected
Yeah.
and elected, did he not?
Well, a few months later, I got a call from Sam. I didn't realize he knew who I was, but he asked if I would be willing to take a leave of absence from my law firm to be his legislative aide at the 1959 legislative session. I'd been to Tallahassee once or twice as a college student, strictly on social visits. I thought that would be very interesting.
Was that just the mingling of FSU and UF?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know much about the legislature then.
Uh-huh.
So the partners in the firm said, yes, I could do it, but it'd have to be without pay. My wife said I could do it if I came home Friday night and was home on the weekends. And Sam said, well, we can provide you with a room to stay in, and the county will pay you a small per diem during the time you're up there because you will help with all the county local bills. So I agreed to do it, and it was a very educational experience.
How long did you do that?
I did that in the 59 and the 1961 sessions, and I became very much aware of the small county domination of the legislature. The Florida legislature over the years had never been fairly reapportioned, so that a substantial majority of the Florida Senate and Florida House of Representatives all lived along the Georgia-Alabama borders and near Tallahassee. And legislators from Central and South Florida were not in the political mainstream. And
So we weren't pulling in probably funding we needed down in this
No,
area, or maybe even South Florida.
No, we were really being shortchanged under the state's tax structure, and it had a very negative effect on a good part of the state. So we worked real hard for legislative reapportionment, and in at the 1962 session, we'd gotten we got the first wave of reapportionment. The legislature agreed to add some additional seats to some of the larger counties.
It wasn't a requirement to do that when, like,
There was
census?
a constitutional requirement that was generally ignored.
Even, were there no census being taken that would?
Oh, yes. We
But
had
they
the
would just
decennial-
ignore the,
They'd mess around with it and not do anything. They tried to pass a bogus counterfeit constitutional amendment to ameliorate the pressure. Governor Collins and even Governor Bryant called them into special session a time or two to reapportion, but they never really did it.
wow.
So in '63, they added 3 additional seats to Hillsborough and Duval and more to Dade. And I ran for one of those open seats and was elected in '63.
The impetus for you doing that, for running for the seat,
Well,
was having seen what was happening up there and not
That
thinking we were...
that was a good part of it, but when the additional seat was created, I began to see some of the early candidates to announce for it. And I felt really that they generally didn't know what was going on. There were some nice people and some capable people. 1 or 2 of them I felt didn't really have any business representing our county, so I decided I could do it as well, if not better, than the ones who had announced. So I decided to become a candidate. My wife agreed to it, and that we could access our savings account. And my law partner signed off on it. And
You ran and won?
friend and neighbors ran. There were 12 of us in the first primary.
Wow.
Then I had a very nice gentleman who was a Republican opponent. But I got elected, I think, just a week or 2 before the '63 session started.
So you were elected how many times then? 12 years.
I served 6 terms.
6 terms, so you were re-elected. That's quite a milestone, isn't it?
Well, the last 3 terms, I didn't have any opposition. It was a little bit easier. But
And you were Speaker of the House, too?
in '72, '74 sessions, yes.
Now, I see from some resume on you that you got involved in many, many issues, and one, I guess, was one of the most important ones. Takes me back to you saying you like this constitutional law class,
Yeah.
but we actually had our first, is it our only revision of the state?
1968 was the first one since 1885.
Wow.
And,
So it's 80 some, like, whatever. I'm not going to
A fair
count that
number
much.
of years.
A fair number of years. And in that constitutional amendment, what happened?
Well,
Or
the
revision.
Constitution of 1885 had been adopted at the end of Reconstruction. and the end of the Federal Armed Occupation Act. And it had a lot of reaction to strong central government. We had a very decentralized executive branch, and a number of other things. It had been amended a number of times, was a very lengthy document. And most folks agreed with the need to revise the Constitution. And Governor Claude Kirk had been elected governor in '66, and the legislature had been reapportioned again by the U.S. District Court. So we had special elections in '67, and Governor Kirk invited a few members of the legislature to come visit him in Palm Beach to talk about revising the Constitution. It was interesting. The speaker at the time was Ralph Turlington from Gainesville, the president of the Senate, Burl Pope from St. Augustine, both very capable, I thought, progressive legislators. And I was given directions to go to Palm Beach and go to the local police station who would guide me to where we were to meet. Now, mind you, we didn't have government in the sunshine then. And Governor Kirk wanted us to all meet at the Municipal Marina, I think it was, and get on a large Canadian yacht and go offshore and talk about revising the Constitution. I remember the weather was very bad, and several of the older legislators said, Governor Kirk, we're not going to go out on that yacht, especially if you're not going out with us. So we changed. He said, well, come to the Duck's Nest, which was his very lovely home there. And he said, you guys know we really need to have constitutional revision. You know my general views on it. I think the executive branch needs to be consolidated somewhat. We've got too many boards and agencies. But I'm not going to mess with the process. Y'all go ahead and get it done. So with that, we undertook to form a constitutional revision commission. And I believe Chesterfield Smith may have chaired that. They presented the draft of a document. The legislature reviewed it. We had a joint House-Senate style and drafting committee that reviewed it, made a few modifications, and I was on that group.
What did it end up doing? What was the major change that it made?
Well, it substantially shortened the Constitution. We didn't do one important segment then. We did not review the judicial article.
But the major finding of that, because I want to talk to you about some more things and don't want to get stuck there.
It was not as major, perhaps, as it should have been. I remember Governor Askew wanted us, he wasn't governor then, he wanted us to have a unicameral legislature. We balked at that. We may have slightly reduced the size of the House of Representatives, eliminated some constitutional boards and agencies. We ended up still having the elected cabinet, though. It was just a cleaner, shorter version of the Constitution. And
also one of the big things that you took on, it looks to me, well, there were a number of things, but one of the big ones that's still an issue today is the education of the children.
Yes.
I guess you were trying to make it more equitable funding, and this is even before the lottery, one said.
That was not my major focus when I went to Tallahassee, but we had a statewide teacher strike in 1968. My wife had been a teacher by that time, though. She was retired, just raising 3 kids and trying to keep up with me. And I met with the superintendent afterwards and asked, why in the world do we have this strike? Because Governor Kirk had vetoed an appropriations bill because he said it would cause new taxes that had strong support from public education. And we went back later after a blue ribbon committee made other recommendations and passed a better, stronger bill for education. But the teachers were very upset because we didn't go the full 9 yards. I think they were somewhat misinformed, and they had higher expectations than the circumstances would allow. But I asked the superintendent why we had this strike, and he said, well, we appreciate what you did. The budget you passed was better than the one he had vetoed. But they said the problem is you gave a lot of money to districts that didn't need it nearly as bad as we do. I said, what do you mean? Doesn't the minimum foundation program pretty much provide money for all the districts? And he said, it does to a degree, but it didn't really conform to reality. He said, for instance, in Pinellas County, they get so much more money per student. They're able to implement a kindergarten program, have smaller classes, better teacher pay. That's why a lot of Hillsborough teachers would quit to go teach in Pinellas if they could get a job there, or Sarasota. He said that the minimum foundation program had a complicated index of tax payability. The only tax source we have is ad valorem taxation. So I tried to figure that out, and in a nutshell, I wanted to know how much revenue 1 mil of ad valorem tax produced per student in average daily attendance. Quick example, Palm Beach County, it produced $44 per student in average daily attendance. In Hillsborough, 22.
Wow.
Multiply that by 20 mills that each district was levying at the time, and then multiply that by 26 students on average daily in the average classroom unit. Those districts are getting close to $10,000 more a classroom per year than, say, 60 of Florida's 67 counties.
How unequal was that?
Very
So what did
unequal.
you do?
Well, the first state to tackle that problem was California, that was able to get a California Supreme Court decision to require equalization. Texas came along next and went to the federal courts, but they dismissed it as not being a federal issue. I thought we might have a chance of doing it legislatively. So I prepared an analysis of public school finance. I sent it to all of the school board members and legislators in the disadvantaged counties. We call them pupil rich and property poor. And also to some of the newspaper editorial editors, educated a lot of people about the problem.
And got it
Introduced
changed.
the bill.
And in
It
the end,
took a few years of pushing and shoving, but we got it changed.
that's fabulous.
Yeah.
You, since your stint up in Tallahassee, you came back here and continued to practice law and got involved in a great many things. I noticed you've gotten more honors than anybody could possibly list, honorary degrees from 4 institutions. There's a school named after you here in Hillsborough
Yeah.
County, an elementary school in Riverview. There's something named after you at the University
A
a mall at University of South Florida. So there are a lot of people who appreciate all the things you've done. I just wonder, because we're going to run out of time in a few minutes, what do you think were the most important things you did, if you could name them, and where do you think we're going here? Do you have any advice for those of us who are trying to get a grip on what's happening both in the economy and here locally and nationally and so forth?
Well, a lot of the things I focused on, and I enjoyed trying to solve problems or take advantage of opportunities. Some were local, some were state. Local ones, the Expressway Authority, the Sports Authority, the Arts
Port
Council.
Authority, everything.
Yeah, a
You
lot of those
created
were-
a lot of these.
But at the state level, equalization of public school finance was probably the most important. Also, we passed the Educational Accountability Act in '71. It was a slightly different animal than it is today. We discovered that on the basis of the old 12th grade tests that were given, that many large public high schools, the graduating seniors' test score was at or below the random chance level. So we met with education officials around the country and in Florida and adopted a program to require testing by
Still a debated thing. and
Still debated.
Still debated all
Still
over
debated.
the country, right?
and it
Especially
still hadn't
here.
been done the way the apostle of educational accountability envisioned it. It's been sometimes used as a weapon rather than a way to
Right.
really be a benefit.
Oh, we've got teachers upset once again about a lot of these things. Where do you think people should be getting involved now here in our county and with the state?
Well, the public needs to be well informed. Unfortunately, most folks are busy. They're doing other things. They don't really get to the bottom of many problems, and
We got all this information
they
coming
rely
out of
on-
us, and it's too much anyway.
they rely on sound bites and such as that.
Yeah.
People in government need to do a better job of communicating to the public, really the core problems and some reasonable solutions to them. We still haven't properly applied educational accountability. Education is a labor-intensive business. I don't think we're really treating our public teachers right. They've almost been made villains when
Well, this accountability and this testing and its relationship to their pay doesn't make a whole lot of sense to them because they can't possibly affect an entire child when they only have this
Correct.
many hours and so many students.
The idea of merit pay has been around forever.
Yeah.
It was there when I came. The problem is, how do you do it accurately and fairly? Now, some teachers are obviously not very good. Some teachers are obviously outstanding. But you have over 30,000 public school teachers in Florida. On what we pay them and how we treat them, you're not going to have thousands of superstar teachers. Most of them are going to be competent, hardworking people, if given a chance, can help your kids. One of the problems we discovered was the classroom environment was changing a lot. I visited most of the Florida school districts when I chaired the House Education Committee. I found that in Miami-Dade, they had employed 60-something retired FBI officers and police officials to help maintain order in
My
their
goodness.
schools. So one of the initiatives we had was the Safe Schools Act. I don't recall, in my experience, a kid ever creating a problem in a class that wasn't fairly easily handled.
Yeah.
Today,
we need all sorts of people to help with this
too
situation.
many students come from dysfunctional families.
We've just run out of time, and I think we have to do a part 2 with you because your background understanding and history of our area and what's going on and what's coming next is so important to all of us. I so appreciate your being here. Thank you very, very much for coming in and doing this interview, and I hope we can do another one soon.
Well, thank you. You
Appreciate it.
compliment me.
I appreciate all you being tuned in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.